All right, so welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're exploring this idea of starting over, fresh starts, new beginnings, all that,
It's something that resonates with, I think, a lot of people at different points in their lives.
for sure.
Oh.
So we found this source called The Courage to Begin Again, which is a super interesting read. It's packed with stories of people who basically just decided to, well, begin again in various ways.
Yeah, and what really stood out to me is how diverse those stories are. I mean, like, we're not just talking career changes here, but like fundamental shifts in how people see themselves and the world.
Absolutely. There's this one story, actually, I think you'll appreciate this one, about a woman who leaves this high-powered, like, super demanding job in finance
Oh yeah, I remember that one.
to become a beekeeper.
Yeah, like out of all things, right.
But it,
But
it
that's kind of what makes it so inspiring. The source really digs into her thought process. Like she was at the top of her game professionally, but totally miserable. And then she has this realization, and the text actually quotes her saying,
oh, this is good.
yeah, it says, I realized I was more afraid of living a life of what ifs than I was of failing. And that really hit me. How many of us are kind of stuck in situations, not necessarily bad ones, but just not fulfilling ones because of that fear of failure.
Totally. It's like we build these cages for ourselves out of fear,
Yeah.
you know? And she just decided to break free.
Exactly. And the source doesn't shy away from the fact that it's a process. I mean, it's scary to walk away from something familiar, even if it's not making you happy.
Right. But it emphasizes that it's not about, like, throwing your whole life out the window overnight.
Yeah. It's more about examining those fears, understanding where they're coming from, and then taking those small steps, right? Like baby steps towards what you actually want.
Speaking of small steps,
Yeah.
the source talks about this interesting exercise, and I was curious what you thought of it. It asks you to think back to a time when you felt truly joyful, genuinely happy, and then think about what you were doing at that moment.
Right. It suggests that those moments often hold a clue to what we should be doing more of, what truly resonates with us, even if it seems completely unrelated to our current lives.
Right. Because I was thinking about it in my own life. There's this societal pressure to always be striving for something bigger and better, but sometimes the things that bring us the most joy are the simple things. Things we maybe loved as children but have forgotten about as adults. I
Right.
mean, it even connects back to that beekeeper, right?
Totally. She found joy in connecting with nature, something she probably hadn't prioritized in her fast-paced corporate world. And the source argues that it's in those moments of true joy where we can often find our authentic selves.
And the thing is, it doesn't have to be some huge, life-altering change. The source actually talks about how even small changes to your routine, like learning a new word each day or even taking a different route to work, can shift your perspective and open you up to new possibilities.
I love that because it's so actionable, right? It's not some vague advice. It's like, here are tangible things you can do today to start moving in the direction of a new beginning. Because I think what often holds us back is this idea that we have to have it all figured out before we even start?
Yeah, totally. It's like, oh, I need a perfect plan and perfect timing and perfect everything. But the text makes this point that, honestly, sometimes you just got to take that leap of faith, even if it's a tiny one.
Absolutely. And I think all of these stories we've been talking about, and really the whole message of this source material, just begs the question, if you could begin again in any area of your life, knowing what you know now, what would that look like?
Where would you start and why? That's something worth thinking about, really let that simmer. But for now, we got to wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us as always. And hopefully, you got something out of this, maybe even a little inspiration to take a chance on a new beginning yourself.